We are good.
All right, and we call the meeting to order.
Yeah.
All right, the meeting is now called to order. Thanks for everybody who can make it. And you good turnout today. Oh. The SON meeting is now called to order. And as usual, we start with an agenda review. Are there any comments anybody wants to make about the agenda? And is it possible to get better on the screen?
Yes, I am trying to.
Okay, so once again, we are down one staff person still, I believe,
Yes.
in this work, so we'll just wait and have a little more patience than we might need to have otherwise.
Are you waiting for me?
I'm kind of waiting for you because nobody else had anything to say.
Okay.
Just, mostly for the public to see what the agenda is. But beyond that, we'll go into public comment now. Do we want to have any special way of doing the public comment period today?
I think so.
Okay.
3 minutes is the
Okay.
thing. I can keep.
All right, so I have 2 people on the list. So far as I don't see anybody else here, was there anybody that signed up in any other way than?
Yes. Unfortunately, I was just able to send out. Oh, for there. Send out the Zoom link, but we'll do in-person comments first, and then we'll switch. We'll let people into the waiting room when it's their turn to speak. And I will just send them a quick message. I just
Okay. All right. So Tom, you're first. Thank you.
Been on.
Okay, if the green light is on, it's supposed to be on.
Okay, I'm Tom Piercina, and I'm a resident of the town of Ithaca, previously of the city, and our family has lived here since 1985. I currently serve as the co-chair of the Finger Lakes chapter of the Climate Reality Project, and also serve as an at-large member of the Tompkins County Environmental Management Council. Today, I'm speaking as an individual. Right at the top, I would like to commend the Sustainability Director and the Commission for developing an original climate action plan and making the effort to engage the public as it comes to its release. Ithaca has always been on the leading edge for environmental action, and with the proposed climate action plan, Ithaca continues its leadership. I have a technical background, and the previous approach to mitigate climate change by sharp greenhouse gas reductions made sense to me. Unfortunately, this concept does not connect to many residents and does not motivate community-wide action. Additionally, the disruptions due to climate change have increased in frequency and severity, so that mitigation on its own is not enough. Plans going forward must include adaptation, emergency preparation, and increased infrastructure resilience to deal with future events. The shift of the climate action plan to be more inclusive of community members of all walks of life is a step in the right direction. The plan makes it clear that climate and sustainability have an impact on many aspects of life affecting everyone here. The broad categories of housing, labor, public health, racial equity, emergency preparedness, and power emphasize the all-encompassing scope of our concerns. Finally, multiple small steps to facilitate the plan in all these categories are clearly laid out. I strongly support this climate action plan and am optimistic that it will help drive community action to lead us to a resilient and equitable community for the longer term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom, and also thank you for coming in person. Okay, go ahead.
Hello.
Hey. This is before we start, as a reminder, everybody should have gotten a copy of comments that were submitted by you and those other folks, and there were 6 total comments, right? Everybody saw that. Okay, so go ahead. Thanks.
Hey, my name is Yayoi. I'm the resident of the city of Ithaca. I am here to express my deep concern and disappointment that the current city's current climate action plan once again excludes a zero waste strategy. Since 2021, members of our organization have consistently participated in public meetings, submitted written comments, met privately with both the former and current sustainability directors, and even drafted concepts for a single-use package reduction ordinance, and presented a related bibliography as well. Despite these repeated efforts, the climate action plan still contains no meaningful action on solid waste reduction and reuse systems. The omission is difficult to understand. Waste reduction is one of the most immediate, low-cost, and high-impact strategies available to local governments. Zero waste policies directly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and from landfills and incinerators, cut plastic pollution and prevent PFAS and microplastics from entering our environment. Compared with large-scale infrastructure projects such as citywide electrification, zero waste measures require far less funding and can be implemented quickly with existing resources. Yet the plan focuses heavily on broad social initiatives, jobs, housing, and investment frameworks, while sidestepping the most actionable and locally controllable area, solid waste. We fully support social equity goals, but climate planning should not overlook direct emission sources in favor of aspirational economic programs. It is hard not to see this exclusion as deliberate. Local advocates I'm sorry, this was I was reading a wrong comment.
These are very much like the ones we have in
No,
writing. Do you wanna?
this was a
do you
written
have something
comment I
different?
submitted. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Can I do this, the one that I was going to do? I was reading written comments. Because
A few more minutes, okay, a couple
Thank
more
you.
minutes is fine.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it because I was supposed to be here on Zoom and that was my plan.
Just, no, you don't need excuses, you just go
And we
ahead.
didn't get the link, so I drove over and I'm reading off of my phone. I can't see very well.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Yayoi. I'm the founder of Zero Waste Ithaca, a local grassroots organization working on reducing toxics and fighting for solutions. This draft climate action plans includes nothing on solid waste or zero waste strategies. That omission speaks volumes about the level of climate discussion in our city. Many municipalities recognize waste reduction as one of the most immediate community-driven ways to cut emissions. The fact that Ithaca does not work on this says more about who we are as a community than any of the lofty goals in the plan. One of the founders of the global zero waste movement, Dr. Paul Cornett, who wrote, "The battle for waste is a battle for democracy's soul." Don't burn our future. We must design waste out of the system and make ourselves fit to live in a sustainable future where humankind and nature live hand in hand. This summer, 40 volunteers with Zero Waste Ithaca removed over 800 pounds of trash from local inlets in just 4 hours. And just this Saturday, during a highway cleanup with Rotary Club, we cleaned up 2-mile stretch of Route 13. We found countless pieces of plastic, large and small, bound for Cayuga Lake, our drinking water source. These plastics don't disappear. They break down into microplastics that enter the water, soil, and our bodies. They carry PFAS, forever chemicals linked to cancer, immune disorders, and reproductive harm. And yet, our city planning board approved 2 synthetic turf fields at Cornell, plastic turf that adds to this contamination. Cornell claimed that the Game Farm Road turf was PFAS-free. We sent samples to independent laboratories using 3 different methods, and all of them came out positive for fluoride and PFAS. For the Meeting Fieldhouse turf that the city approved construction without even letting us know that manufacturer and model. Considering that our test showed the highest fluoride in the blaze and that the indoor field used for the meeting house uses higher crumb infill, the PFAS level will almost certainly be higher still. Leaving zero waste measures out of a climate plan while approving more plastic projects is not climate leadership. It is denial.
Yayoi, that is your time. Thank you.
I urge the commission to amend the plan to include true zero waste strategies. Thank you.
Thank you. As usual, there is time for commission response to any of this.
We still have 3 people on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about that. Thank you.
I don't know that they'll be able to hear me, so you can announce them as they're coming in. I'll tell you their name. This is Carver, is it Houghton?
Houghton or Houghton? Carver, I can't read that quite either. Is it Carver? Are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Welcome, Carver. You've
Thank you very
got,
much.
we'll be keeping time for you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so good evening. My name is Carver Hopman, and I'm a junior studying environment and sustainability at Cornell. I'm submitting this comment today just to protest the lack of inclusion of the zero waste section or implementation plan within the proposed climate action plan. And so, as everyone likely knows, there are many different areas of zero waste, ranging from reducing packaging waste and allowing for reusable containers and utensils in restaurants or grocery stores. And while I believe those are all important to give attention to, I want to bring your attention to a few of the smaller areas of zero waste. So some of those smaller inclusions that I would like to see on a proposal would be things like bans or fees for single-use plastic bags and even reusable or paper bags in stores, just to kind of reduce the ideology that people can just continue to buy these reusable things without actually using them again and again like they're supposed to be. Rules that request or require a request for a receipt before printing, just so that it's a small thing, but just saving those receipts can build up over time. I think that would be something that could have a great impact, even with just a small habit change. And even fees for single-use disposables like cups and silverware in restaurants or grocery stores. Those may have pretty small impact individually, but collectively, I think that all of those things could have very large impacts on a broad scale in the community, starting here and then even ranging beyond there. But yeah, I think that those changes can make people more aware of their overall impacts, and those small habit changes can make people more aware of other areas of zero waste that they might be able to then change on their own without legislature or plans that are implemented by government. And so I also want to say that this kind of legislation or infrastructure should be pretty easy to implement and design. Simple things like signing people up for programs that support sustainability, and then just simply offering the ability for someone to opt out. I think that's a really easy thing to do, and it has proven to be successful over the years in reducing the impact of areas like energy use, or even areas like using disposable single waste products. And so, like I said before, there's a lot of areas with the zero waste that should be highlighted, and I think they probably have. But I wanted to bring these ideas to your attention today, and I think that including them on future legislature and this climate action plan would be a very simple addition and would be a great step in the right direction of forming a truly impactful zero waste infrastructure here in Wilton. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carver. I'm gonna just comment, my hearing isn't the greatest. I got about 80% of that. But the sound quality wasn't.
I think
Super
Trevor
good.
also
So
sent
that-
it.
Yeah, so that'd be very good to be able to have those.
Carver, did you also send in?
Perfect. I did. I did submit a comment through the online submission form, so that should come through. I hope.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
So is it Constance who's next? Is that right?
Yes, Constance is next. So.
Okay, thanks. Constance, you should be able to take the floor now.
Constance, can you hear us?
Constance, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Okay,
Okay, all right, you're good now.
now can you hear me now?
Yes.
Here I am.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. How do I have what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Constance Sterling Engman. I live in Forest Home. Good evening. I'm speaking in support of including zero waste strategies in the city's climate action plan and to share a framework developed by Zero Waste for a single-use packaging ordinance. The ordinance combines practical measures already working in other cities. I've seen them. I travel a lot now that I'm retired, and a lot of places have zero waste initiatives that are simple and that enable people to, it's easy to do the right thing. I'm also promoting skip the stuff, provide utensils, straws, and condiments only upon request, including opt-in options for delivery apps. Another one, number 3, is on-site reuse. Require reusable dishware for dine-in service where dishwashers exist, mirroring policies now being considered in New York City. Number 4, visible fees. Add small charges for disposable cups or packaging listed on receipts to encourage reuse while keeping the revenue with business. Complementary actions. Number 5, receipts by request only. Skip the slip, it's called. Reusable foodware at city-sponsored events. Clear 3-bin systems for recycling, composting, and landfilling. And phase out of single-use plastic water bottles on city property and expansion of refill stations. You see this in national parks a lot. We also propose a Composting Incentive Act modeled on Washington, D.C.'s program to strengthen local composting and create clean community-based soil systems. And also add reusables to the K-12 cafeterias. That would be great as well. They already have the infrastructure in place. These are not radical ideas. They're low-cost, high-impact steps already proven elsewhere. Integrating them into the climate action plan would make Ithaca a genuine leader in waste reduction, job creation, and climate accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we have 1 or 2 more.
One more. Says Eileen.
Eileen, if you are there, you would have the floor now.
Maybe just take a second for the audio to catch up.
Right, and Eileen, so far we see you being muted.
Eileen, are you still there?
Let's go on.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear us? David, I think.
Yes, thank you. I'm Eileen Driscoll, and I think that the climate action plan should support individual people's decisions regarding sustainability in their personal lives. So if people decide they do not want to be using plastics because they're fossil fuels or they're worried about some of the health issues, then there should be some supports in place for them, like being able to bring their own containers and pick up food, or not using single-use plastic bottles. There are a lot of institutional things that could be done to cut back on using plastic utensils and non-recyclable plates, etc. I think the county has seen the effect of the banning of plastic bags in the grocery store, and that people would accommodate and enjoy the choices of being able to stop using plastic, especially single-use plastic, and they would also not be filling up the landfill or adding to the PFAS in the environment. Thank you.
And thank you, Eileen. Are there any more public comments? Anybody else signed up?
That I am aware
Okay,
of. If there's anyone else in the room.
anybody else in the room? There's one person who came in.
Everyone's looking down tells me no.
Okay. Is this someone want to talk?
Sorry.
If you could come up to the microphone here so other people could hear you.
Absolutely.
And tell us your name, please. And whether you're a city resident. Yeah, bet you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. Yes, so my name is Zach Schmidt, and yes, I'm a Stephen London. Yeah, I just think it was important to come here today. I'm going to summarize Ithaca with my friend Sam here, and we're the youth climate justice group here in Ithaca. We yeah, it's always important to come here today just to share kind of our youth perspective of the climate action plan. Overall, the climate action plan is very important for everyone in the city. From a youth perspective, it's definitely important for us to focus on issues affecting young people right now. Obviously, the rising costs and rent are a key issue that is affecting us. So rent stabilization is a major component of the climate action plan that we are definitely strongly in support of. We are also in support of all like kind of justice oriented aspects of the climate action plan. Since we are climate justice oriented, we are focusing on not just how we, the city, move forward regarding like reducing greenhouse gas emissions and like reducing our overall impact and just like transitioning to like greener energy, but also in incorporating justice into our actions, basically looking at where climate change, where those aspects like where they most affect city residents. And those are disproportionately affecting climate justice communities that have been historically, like affected by climate change and also historically marginalized and are often unable to financially compensate for the damages that are caused. So justice is a really key important issue in this plan, in everything it's done. It's not just about reducing the effects of climate change, but also learning from past mistakes so that all city residents are able to live healthily and live in equity city. So that was important to mention from youth perspective, and thank you so much.
And thank you very much, Zach, for coming in person in particular. I know that everybody's able to do that. But it's nice to see people. So I think that's now everyone, and now it's time if the commissioners have any thoughts or in response. Anything they heard? Christine, are you reaching?
Yes, I just offered Andrew as well. I'm just wondering if Rebecca could say anything about how the waste is organized within the municipality, just to clarify for commission members, but also for members of the public who are here. Just so we have a common understanding of how these things are dealt with.
Yeah, well, I can tell you what I know at the very least, so that's fine. The city collects curbside solid waste, only landfill destined solid waste, so a private contractor actually collects recycling. And private citizens need to drop off their own compost or do it in their backyard or what have you. As far as the landfill destined waste, that is driven directly to Seneca Meadows. Everything else is taken to the Tompkins County tip floor, which is over on 13 behind the. It's not a Hobby Lobby, but it's basic, yes, Harvard. And I think more importantly, as far as our greenhouse gas emissions go, waste. I don't remember what our 2023 numbers, but everything is fairly consistent, is less than 1% of our total greenhouse gas emissions in the city. So as far as where are we expending our energy, that is was a big deciding factor. In addition to the reframing as far as why we do not have a section on waste.
Fernando, were you going to speak up too?
Yeah, following on the topic, I still think we should waste, before I worked transportation, I worked in solid waste, New Jersey, years ago.
Good place.
But it's, I think it's an aspect of our modern living that is often ignored or overlooked. And you know, we've heard comments, there are many programs, what I like about the possibility of including this, that there are things that can be done. With low cost, as it was explained, and programs that already are proven in other communities, that there's no reason why they couldn't work here. That I think, and I mean, I'm saying that there's an interest in the community, there's gonna be support, from community groups to help implement this program, so and even though the energy impact or the emissions impact is less than 1%, there are other aspects of it that have to have an impact on the environment that I think merit serious consideration to add the topic into our program. I like the idea of being supportive to the local groups that are trying to promote this ideas. I mean, it's all positive, and I think it would be helpful to them to be able to point to a plan. The city that says, you know, we have a commitment to address this issue in the community. So I will support exploring some language, even if it's 1 or 2 action items. Whatever things, you know, I don't have a proposal to make, but I think that it would not be very complicated to. Like, we have expertise available, and I'm sure we'll be happy to help us craft good language for the camp. The other thing, if I may, another topic. The first presentation, and I'm glad we have it. I liked the preamble that was offered. I kept thinking this is a great elevator speech to what we do and why we're doing it, and then why the camp, why the plant looks the way it does. So I'm going to look at that up and kind of read it and use it as I thought it was very well written. So thank you for that.
Other comments from the, yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, so in a similar vein, I think that something I read in one of the comments, and I think someone said it too, is a lot of the stuff in the climate action plan is just necessarily more kind of technocratic and like it requires a certain type of person that might want to engage with these like boring-ish documents and they have like large impacts perhaps. But I do think there's a place, especially like because the community is coming out and speaking about this, like a place for something that is visible and enables people to take some sort of action to feel a part of um a, yeah, a part of the Ithaca Green New Deal. And if it's being asked that we include something at this stage, I think it would do a lot to actually include something. As a very meaningful gesture to be like, we are listening to the community. Um, and even if it is like a small amount of total whatever emissions and it doesn't do all that much for mitigation, it's still like there is a quality of life and like visible aspect to noticing when waste is reduced. So I also feel like even just like strategically it makes sense to include and yeah, I think we should include something. I wasn't a huge fan of the things that might incur costs on consumers or businesses, or might put the city against businesses, especially in economic times like these. But I'm sure there's like some sort of waste reduction thing that can go in there that is kind of like a win-win for all.
Other comments?
I have a follow-up question. Do you have recommendations, or I guess this is a question for the commission, of the entire commission of, do you have recommendations of what might be an example of what you're talking about that would not be a burden on individuals or on businesses? The only thing that immediately comes to, well, let me couch this also, that we are kind of on a time crunch now. The way that the climate action plan is set up is that every recommendation also comes with the research behind it so that it's incredibly data driven. So that each of these sectors, housing, labor, public health, whatever, we are removing barriers to reaching, whatever those goals are as part of those recommendations. So I guess I'm just wondering, the easiest way to do this would have a hard recommendation that comes out of the commission that you would want included. Rather than we would like to see something from waste that isn't a burden on anybody, that is low in cost. Ideas is what I'm asking for.
I hear you. Could I ask either you or Pierre or both of you to also comment? So this, obviously, we've heard concerns about waste at this commission, not for the first time.
Yeah.
I've heard them before. So, like Fernando, I actually spent about 10 years working on solid waste issues, more organic waste than plastic waste. And I'm not totally in touch with how much the solid waste management system has changed since then, and it includes lots of different components, including water, air, and land pollution. Includes economic dimensions. There's a lot of elements to it. And also, I don't think that we need to a priori worry. I mean, people are going to have their opinions, but a priori, we don't need to worry necessarily before we've even looked at it about whether there's a burden on businesses or, I mean, some people will say that's too much. Some people will say we should put those burdens on, just like we did with the supermarket and plastic bags. So I don't want to like foreclose discussion, but my question is really about what the right venue is for this discussion to happen. I mean, in other words, I haven't really pushed this much, and I basically agree with, other comments that were made in response, like I think solid waste for many reasons and management is a very significant issue. I devoted a significant part of my life to working on it when back in the 80s when the unlined landfills were closed in the US. But I'm still not sure that the most effective way to tackle it is through the climate action plan. And I've sort of deferred a little bit to others on that. And I also know historically, when I was working on it, it seemed to me most effective to work on that issue at the county level because the county waste management system was kind of in the lead. But I do see on the list of recommendations that have been made of possible actions, not all of which I would endorse, but some I would probably if I thought about it more, that some could be done by the city rather than at the county level. So anyway, my recommendation is that the city in some way, shape or form take this issue seriously. I'm not sure that I know whether the climate action plan is the right place to do it, but if it's not happening anywhere else, then maybe I'd be in favor of at least starting some kind of some kind of working group. For me, it would be ideally in collaboration with the county solid waste management division to say what is feasible and what isn't feasible that isn't already on the table, and what role would the city have in it.
And I can kind of couch that with, there are a lot of things that we do that are not represented in the climate action plan. That this is a take on climate action, and it's not going to encompass every single task that we do for the next 10 years. As much as I would like it to fit on 10 pages or whatever it is. And to that end, we've been in conversations with the county around waste issues, including on what would it actually take to do curbside compost in the city? What would that cost? What would the emissions actually be to drive around a 3-ton dump truck around the city and take it to the tip floor and actually doing that life cycle analysis? So just because things are not represented in the climate action plan doesn't mean that they're not happening. I think, all of the grants that we have are a really good example of that. Actually, none of the funding that we have coming in is represented in the climate action plan, but that's still work that we're doing. And it still contributes in some way, but these are guideposts, and they're meant to be. That is where significant staff time will be spent over the next 10 years, and not necessarily everything that's going to happen in the county in contribution to the Green New Deal. So I think that's, we have to kind of couch it as, taxpayer dollars are going to go towards paying staff to do this kind of work. And so I need to be able to do that kind of cost benefit analysis of who's benefiting according to this new structure of our climate action plan, which based on the structure that we have, I don't see how waste fits since we don't have a landfill. And we don't collect our trash, other than picking it up from the curb and taking it somewhere else.
Well,
Just let her finish first.
And the greenhouse gas emissions issue of bang for your buck, it's very, very little return versus time and money that would need to be spent. But again, that does not mean nothing is happening.
Fernando, and then.
well, this is the new layout of the plan is very broad on the topics it touches, and it's I'll look, for example, at the housing policies and people may have a hard time understanding how participatory housing process is going to reduce emissions. Okay, there's a justice component to it, but emissions, I don't know. now in solid waste, you have the whole side of disposal of the waste once it's generated is one thing. A lot of what we've been hearing from the group here, and I think would fit better with our plan is on the waste reduction side.
I agree.
Okay, it's reducing waste. There's where I think we can easily find win-wins. I think we can come up with language. I mean, by the end of next week, I can get you language to consider for the committee, or even earlier if you need it earlier. But to develop a policy that would fit our structure, I think it could be done with a focus on waste reduction and
At the city level or at the
city
producer level?
Absolutely at the city level.
See, that's, I think,
Working with restaurants to, that's the simplest one that comes to mind is, to eliminate the plasticware, or the type of plates and ware so that we have, takeout containers that can be recycled, or that we have takeout containers that are compostable or whatever. Finding or have less of them, or have options for bring your own, whatever it is. I mean, there's a number of strategies that can be followed, but I think there's opportunities for relatively, low cost win-win situations that can have an impact. They're actually, just like the business with the bags at the supermarket. I mean, they're very visual and very actionable things that people feel like they're doing. I'm bringing my bag to carry my stuff. So it's this participatory aspect of people feeling like they're contributing. And I think it's important, to people feel like they're doing stuff, and with everyday actions. I'm gonna stop. But I do commit to helping write something if that's what's needed.
Pierre, you were gonna add something?
Yeah, I just want to note that solid waste has come up in TCOG meetings in the past year, in terms of coordination between all of our local governments. And to what was just being discussed, I know there are multiple members of Common Council who are in 4-year terms, so will be around next year, who have expressed an interest in looking into reduction in the coming year. That might be, honestly, from my perspective, that might be a more effective avenue to pursue.
Yeah, I think so.
Is there any way within the context that Fernando, that you were suggesting to acknowledge somehow, I mean, maybe it's the language you put together that, that we will explore the most appropriate city policy venue for engaging with this issue as part of the CAP?
That would be super easy to do.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's not coming to a specific idea, but if we want a specific project, we're gonna deal with, waste reduction of restaurants. So if we want something specific, we'll probably come up with that too, but certainly saying that we will work to address or work to help reduce waste.
And I think,
generation. It's us.
yeah, and I think it'd be good to acknowledge in particular, because of the input we've gotten, in particular, the role of plastics and waste reduction. I mean, there's special issues there. I mean, I wrote down about a dozen different specific recommendations that were made. Maybe it's because I'm an academic, but I've worked on some of them, and I would say I wish that they would work, but some of them I don't think are likely to work at the scale we're talking about, and particularly the areas, some of them will, some of them will, and there's different approaches to it. So like, I wouldn't want to commit to a specific policy yet, but like some way that can evaluate the policies that are being suggested and pick the ones that seem most likely to fit our situation. It seems quite reasonable, and I think that Kara is saying that they're could and should be, I'm hearing a should there, as well as a maybe, could. I would add a should to it, that the city ought to be taking a look at, conservation and solid waste issues, because we're generators, just because we don't have a landfill. We are generating, we're a city and we generate waste, and most of the time we ship it somewhere else, so that's a problem. And also, as many people said, there's a bit of a trade-off about where it ends up. Like I've had experiences of seeing places raise the price of disposal so high that people just dump it by the side of the road, which is not a good alternative. So, it's a sophisticated kind of thing you have to look at about how you do it.
And just to follow up on the specifics of policy, that any policy that we recommend or anything that we recommend in the climate action plan is not blindly adopted just because it's in the climate action plan. The expectation is that that is a starting point to do some additional analysis. So, it could be that we recommend, I think the energy code is a great example. When we first adopted that, that was the best policy that was available at that time, but it's been 4, 5, actually 6 years since then, and now there are better examples for us to use, so we're going back to amend it. So we have, amendment isn't the best example, but we have the opportunity that just because something works today and it seems like the very best thing, something better might come along, or we might, whatever. You get what I'm trying to say.
So, Aaron,
Yeah, you put me on the spot about like, hey, do you have any specific examples or ideas? I know there were emailed some resources that we can look at, but also the old availability bias for work. We checked out, I was on a trip and we checked out some like tool libraries in Minneapolis. And it's kind of incredible because it's people just can go in there, borrow a tool and then put it back. And so there's like different types of waste and there's like, whatever your restaurant like single use stuff, but there's also like a lot of electronic waste and tools and things that people purchase don't use that much and then ditch. I know my housemate found like the separate components of like a working hedge trimmer. So now we have a hedge trimmer that we basically got for free. So it's like there's some aspect to I think boosting like reuse. I mean we have the reuse center, but based on like the fact that we all know what Cornell Christmas is and things like that, it's like I think we do, right? Maybe some of us that are more bored know about it. But
We know what you're talking about.
there's a lot of free stuff that the university kind of like gets rid of or students get rid of at the end of semesters. And so it's like that could actually solve both because that stuff, if people don't find things that they want, it goes to landfill, but also if organized and lent out in something like a tool library, that actually cuts costs and tool libraries are often places where there are like repair cafes, which then diverts that stream as well. And that kind of takes a lot of times it's like simple electronic things like a trimmer or something. That's not even really that electronic, but a specific part breaks, can be repaired. But people don't know that, so they chuck it and buy a new one. So it's like that's one type of solution. It's just like boosting reuse, and maybe like Christine over here knows about deconstruction.
right, I'm gonna suggest that we not talk about deconstruction now, but, cause I think we need to move on to the agenda, but what I heard, I'm not exactly sure where we're ending up, but either Fernando is gonna maybe draft some language, or you're gonna draft some way.
I don't think we even need to. I think we just need to come up with a recommendation at this point. However loose or tight that may be. And go from there.
Well, I was hearing some energy on Fernando's part to maybe do that, so I would say unless you feel like you wanna start that, I would suggest you might.
I would
send
love
something.
support if you're offering.
Yeah, I mean, we have community resources that I will tap that, I mean, folks who've been looking at this much more in depth and, because I would like to ask, what is the low hanging fruit? What is the thing we can do easily and cheaply, and what is the more ambitious type project, and then we can talk about what makes sense for this plan, but.
I will just also add mention, like, I used to work pretty closely with the Waste Management Institute of Cornell, which has kind of gotten very narrow in what it did for a long time, but they just have new leadership and they're being reconstituted, and they may have a new agenda that would be useful for if, if and when we move in this direction, to tap into those resources.
Good. Yeah, I mean, this is not like an endpoint, this is anything at the beginning, including something in here is important. But if other opportunities arise, then, we can amend, we can change, we need to. Okay.
Is it okay? Anybody have anything else burning they want to add, or is it okay if we move on? All right, thank you. Okay. And thank you, Fernando, for taking the lead on that. So we're gonna move on now to new business. No, what are questions from memo? What's that?
So I sent out a memo to all
Oh,
of
right.
you with general updates, so updates on CCA, on congressionally directed spending, on hiring, some more state level updates that the city is involved in, or that will impact the city residents, and then dates that are upcoming for, Green New Deal, big Green New Deal things, which are also next on our agenda. So just wanted to give you all an opportunity to ask any questions or get any clarification if you wanted or needed it.
Christine.
Are you able to talk about planning decision and what's going on in some of the
Yeah, so we had a little bit of we shuffled things a little bit. So we had released the job listing, and we actually have several vacancies in the department, like in the planning department. And when we reviewed the job descriptions, we found that the sustainability planner, the requirements were much tougher than a regular urban planner, despite the pay being exactly the same. So we went back and revised the sustainability planner position so that the requirements were the same, or the qualifications, I should say, were the same. And sent it to the Civil Service Commission, which we miraculously were able to turn around in 24 hours, which for anyone who's ever dealt with the Civil Service Commission, that is nothing short of miraculous. And that has since been released and closed. We have had one interview last week, which was great. We will have another interview this week, and we anticipate making an offer by early next week. So, assuming it is a successful search. So, depending on when that individual is available and whatnot, could be very soon. But, I'm not holding my breath for any sooner than the new year. That's our expectation. Because we didn't think that the civil service would move that quickly.
Well, that's good news. Can you just tell us whether there's any significant rewrite of responsibilities as opposed to qualifications?
No, none.
Okay, all right.
Just qualifications.
Okay. Thanks. Any other memo related questions, comments, responses? Anything you want us to provide you feedback with about the memo?
No, I guess I will just, if you didn't see the email, I know I got a reply from Fernando. And I did send it to Irene already, so thank you. But I did send out a copy of an RFP for council representation in the NYSEG rate case. Our hope is that that individual or firm will actually represent a coalition of municipalities that are seeking similar things out of the rate case. One, of course, limited rate increases, obviously. But a number of other things as well. I know I would love to see a heat pump rate during the heating season. Other states and municipalities have done this very successfully. Instead of penalizing people with heat pumps, actually just making it affordable to own, things like that. And then some other kind of, there are a number of really concerning things in the rate case. One that actually is not covered in anything other than the clean energy testimony, which you have to dig for, and it's on the very last page, is the new socialization structure for upgrades. So the way that it is currently framed in testimony is that if a community, for example, is making headway on electrification and therefore needs grid upgrades, they have the opportunity to request those upgrades of NYSEG. And in exchange, instead of socializing the cost of those upgrades across the entire service territory, which is 40% of New York State, that cost would only be socialized within the municipal jurisdiction in which the upgrade occurs. So we're now talking multiple millions of dollars across 30,000 people.
Yeah.
It's very bad, and is specifically, again, penalizing municipalities and individuals that are making headway on the CLCPA or on climate action. So this is when I say this is a really important rate case, this is a critical rate case. This could make or break the CLCPA for the next 10 years. And it certainly could make or break the Green New Deal. Certainly by 2030. So if you're not involved, I really encourage you to be involved. And if you have any recommendations for legal firms that would be potentially interested, please shoot me an email or however you like to communicate. And then the other one is the changes to Empower Plus and LIHEAP. If there's some details in the memo, but just want to make sure in case you didn't see it, because of the changes to those programs, one of the programs that falls through the cracks is one called Repair and Replace, which low-income residents could have a broken furnace replaced for free during the heating season if it broke. That program no longer exists. So if a low-income household family, if their furnace breaks this winter, there's no fixing it. And there's nothing that you can do. You can turn on a bunch of space heaters, but you're going to have to pay the really high electricity costs. So now the limit on sort of emergency assistance is $6,000 under the what's left of the programs. But the quotes that we're hearing with the tariffs and everything else for a single family home, a modest single family home, like $12,000 for a gas burning furnace. Yeah. So, we being a number of different organizations, I mean, CCE, they're the ones that, include me into this, working with the county, working with the town, working with some of our philanthropic friends, as well as, some of our social services friends to figure out how do we plug the holes in this, at least within Tompkins County. It's not a huge hole annually. We're talking like maybe $35,000, something like that every year. It's not huge. So even just to get through this year would not be an impossible lift, but it is still hard. So if you know any contacts that would be good to talk to, please send them our way, either to the NYSERDA hub at CCE or to me, and I can pass them on. Any contacts are greatly appreciated. And that's all.
I just ask you if there's any direct relationship between the rate case and what will happen when we actually start moving ahead with the CCA.
No.
Okay.
So what the big rate increases that you see in the rate case are on delivery of electricity. So all of the infrastructure, the wires, transformers, substations, all of that, that actually carries the electrons from generation to end use. Unless we decide, whoever the we is, whether that's the city, the county, or the state, or the federal government decides we want to purchase that infrastructure, we will always be paying that bill. Whether it's NYSEG or whoever comes after NYSEG, if that ever happens. So the only way to get around that is to aggressively deploy renewables. One way to do that is microgrids or on-site, which is why it's so heavily represented in the climate action plan, because it does have immediate relief on household energy costs. But so no, it's not directly related to the rate base.
But isn't part of the microgrid distributed generation?
Yes, related,
directly back to the CCA.
Yes, they're sister plans, I suppose you could say, yeah.
Okay, all right.
They just won't be launched at the same time, I guess is the difference.
Okay, thanks. So should we move on then?
Yes, we should move on.
Okay, so recommendations.
Yes, and this already has to change, so I'm sorry. And this may ultimately impact our meeting in December. So previously I told you that the climate action plan is going to council on the 5th, and the energy code is going to council on the 19th. That's not happening anymore. Everything got turned upside down. Now the climate action plan, the earliest it will be going to council is December, which would be December the 17th, I believe. And the energy code is now going to council on the 12th of November. The reason for that, I will be on medical leave starting on the 19th. And will be immobile for several weeks. So I may not be able to be in this room for our December meeting, which I kind of had a feeling we may end up canceling anyway. Well, it's the 8th, so maybe early enough, but we can cross that bridge later. So we still have plenty of time to figure out what we want to do about letters, resolutions, or if you want to do anything about either of these documents, I guess. In your agenda packet, there was a memo in the memo, there was also a memo about the energy code, which gave kind of a high level overview of what it does and the changes that were made. So that is our most time critical, because it's going to council in, a little less than a month. This is a sister policy with the city, or excuse me, the town. So we have nearly identical energy codes. The differences are just in like government structure, how we deal with variances, that sort of thing. Otherwise, they are identical. I will say there are some exceptions in the energy code that are made at the state level that we would really like to fix, but we don't have time to do it before December 31st, which is when we have to have this done. So we'll have to do it in 2026. But that also means that you all will have a lot more input into that process as far as, is that something that we want to do? How might we structure something like that? Those exceptions are between 2026 and 2028. Buildings that are over 7 stories are not prohibited from using fossil fuels. Over 7 stories and 100,000 square feet, I think, is the threshold. I have my own thoughts of why they are exempt, but I don't know for sure. Yeah. And the other one, which is a little bit thornier and trying to figure out the solution to, is also really, really sticky. Historic properties, but it's not that historic properties are exempt, it's that character defining, and you probably know this better than I do.
Features.
Character defining features, if they are impacted by the energy code, or they would be impacted by the energy code, then that specific thing is exempt. So it's very tricky. One, because I don't know enough about how historic properties are qualified and what really is a defining feature. So that particular exception is actually why we're holding off, because we want to give it more thought as far as how do we not make it so that there's friction between historic property owners and policy, but also the fact that historic properties have been, and still can be really great advocates for efficiency and electrification.
Yeah.
So how do we just find that balance in terms of code? I will stop there and see if there are questions on the code itself.
Yes, Siobhan.
Yeah, I do have a question, which is that previously we had received information at the commission that Cornell had been requesting specific amendments to the Ithaca Energy Code supplement. And we had sort of tabled that discussion. Is it accurate to say that because of the way that the state energy code is written, that satisfied the questions that Cornell had, and we're not going to be making amendments to the energy code supplement?
Well, we are making amendments to the energy code supplement, but only in the sense that we're repealing it entirely.
Yeah.
But yes, the state code that is then sliding in to where the supplement used to be, yes, that covers the questions that Cornell had. However, with that said, there are a lot of district systems in New York State, not just at Cornell. So, you know, Cornell has their right to seek clarification at the state level of our code enforcers interpreting that correctly. And if so, can they seek some sort of something? I don't have the right language, but like there are entire cities that use district systems. So just as a sort of benchmark to the conversation. But all that to say that, you know, if any entity wanted to have some exception or variance to their existing building or a retrofit to their existing building, they would have to go to the state for that variance, not to the local planning board, which is a pretty massive change from where we were before.
So just as like a tie up to that previous conversation with Cornell, which is that the city is not going to make the suggested changes that Cornell put forward, and they would have to take it up with the state.
Correct.
I was just looking real quick, but what's the reason behind the 7-story exemption?
I don't know. It was a state decision. I mean, I have my guesses, but I was not part of the state code development. I have a feeling it had something to do with New York City and the number of large buildings and the amount of development that happens there.
Although 7 seems an odd number.
It is an odd number, but I think, you know, what Ithaca has done well is, and what developers in Ithaca have done well is, ever since it's not the Green New Deal, since the green building policy passed or the energy code supplement passed, all commercial buildings or multifamily buildings have been fully electric. So they're doing it voluntarily.
Yeah, sorry. 1, 2. First.
Reading in, the memo is the tentative timeline for approval. It includes us in this meeting today. Is this, are you looking for an action today from us?
No, I mean,
Just-
not necessarily. I mean, this is informative for you all, and if you wanted to send something to council in support, then I am offering my availability to help you with information scavenge for whatever you need. But not necessarily a decision. This is something that we have to do. I think what we've just found on Wednesday of last week, did Lou Vogel from Tatum Engineering did a side-by-side analysis of, you know, we wanted to make sure that we were not leaving anything on the table, that the new code at the state level is not any less strict than what we would be repealing. And the answer was no, and that this is actually more strict.
Just to be clear, this being the city,
The new energy
city
code
and-
supplement, yeah.
City and town.
Yes, and it very minorly. But same.
Here.
I just want to check in, council doesn't have a scheduled meeting either the 10th or the 17th of December. We can talk more.
I'm talking with yes, I did send something to the mayor. It may be that, so I know that he did not initially want to meet in December. I don't know if that's changing or not. It can wait until January though, if it has to.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because
It'd be a real bummer.
on a personal level, I'm not confident we can get a quorum of council
Yeah.
for an unplanned meeting in late December.
Imagine how easy it would get passed though, if I was the only one here. Thank you.
These are just two comments, just quickly, so, what you were mentioning about the 7 stories, so that ties into, in New York State, it's called local law 154, which
Mhm.
you know about. So just that, some folks know, because the 7 story thing actually, by 2027, affordable housing, 7 stories or taller is supposed to be included. But then market rate is not like listed in it yet, so just to clarify that. They have a little timeline on the New York City website. And then in terms of the historic building, so 2 summers ago, Brian and I had an intern who wrote best practices for placement for heat pumps in historic districts. So that's a visual guide for owners, and I know that Brian's been using it at ILPC to help owners
Yes.
understand
Yes.
where they should and should not put leads, so and lines, so that is available, but yeah.
Yes, thank you.
But the tie-up is because of the Secretary of Interior standards, which our local ordinance has to follow, but there are obviously very useful ways around that. So, yeah, it shouldn't be a stumbling block, hopefully, well, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, we have been as far as historic properties and how do we make that mesh. We've been exploring ways of how do we incentivize historic property owners to meet the code rather than force them to meet the code so that, one, it's easier. But also we don't want additional friction between historic property owners and code and permitting and all that sort of stuff. Cause I know we've heard some of that this past year, at least in like public comment or council or whatever. So trying to avoid that and also trying to kind of lift them up as the advocates that they can be. So yes, and we will probably loop you. Brian and I are in conversation, so we'll probably loop you in to that in 2026 when it's time to start really looking at that carefully.
Anything else?
Well, I guess the question is, oh, you said before, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say for us to provide you, that you want us to talk about.
I guess, the big question, I guess, for you all is, would you like to provide any support for either of these? I realize that the timeline for the energy code is shorter. And I would say that the pressure, the urgency around providing support for that one, I would say is significantly less because we are doing it with the town. This is something that already exists and we're just kind of updating it. Whereas the climate action plan, I think, is going to need significant support. It's pretty rare for people to come to public comment on the Green New Deal at council. Unless they're mad about something, so we can always expect that, I guess. But so if it's an issue of capacity and you're trying to weigh, where's energy best spent, I would recommend energy code, or it could be zero also.
I just got confused because I thought you were gonna recommend, you weren't gonna recommend energy code. I maybe misunderstood
What was the last thing I said?
You said that you would recommend, I heard you say that you would recommend we put time and energy into the energy code.
That's not what I meant, sorry,
Okay.
climate action, energy was reference. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you are.
Just as if anything is going to end up being for the new council in January, I think a recommendation from you guys will have more weight than otherwise, as there will be 5 new council members who have not been given any awareness of what's going on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I totally forgot that there will be a half of a new council by the time it's time to vote on the climate action plan. Because even if it goes in December, it won't be voted on until 2026,
Yeah,
which is what we were trying to avoid.
yeah. But given that it's happening, we want to think of some sort of strategy to just kind of approach each of these persons and get a half hour with them. Just explain what's going on.
I don't know if I'm allowed. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Just
about Yeah.
No?
In terms of the world of the politics versus state gap, that probably tends too close to it.
Already, I mean, after the election.
Do after November.
Yeah, not before.
I mean, I'm not confident. I'd have to check with the city attorney. What I can say is that I know myself and some other members of council are planning on trying to have meetings with the folks coming in, being like, hey, this is what's going on. I know I'll bring this up in once I have. I cannot promise that people will agree to me. I cannot promise that incoming members of council will know anything.
I think, at the very least, what we can do is I can write a memo that is outlining as much as possible. It does get it gets weird, and I don't, weird isn't the right word, but I don't know why, and frankly, it doesn't matter, but yeah, it's just it's a challenging situation.
Yeah, I hear you. And maybe even when it's time to go for vote and you prepare that memo. I mean, there's an opportunity there to introduce the plan and educate.
And the mayor could do outreach on behalf of the climate action plan too.
I would also suggest that any commissioner who's a citizen or not a citizen, and have conversations with people who are elected or want to be elected. We're all. So I'm just saying, there's a difference between what you as a staff person do and what anybody not speaking necessarily for the commission as a whole does in terms of conversations that they have with people who are elected officials. I mean, I can talk to you if I run into you in the supermarket,
Absolutely, yeah. Commission members are under none of the restrictions that Rebecca is.
We're not necessarily speaking authoritatively in that sense. We are members of a body that has a lot of information about this. So,
I mean, you understand what our Green New Deal is and what its obligations are, which most people don't.
Right, and I'm just trying to distinguish what that would be like, as opposed to if we passed a resolution that we wanted Congress, like you Congress folks to take into account before you voted on something. That would be different.
Yes, although you can also do that. I do like to think we're better than Congress since we know how to pass a law.
Good job.
That was a bad slip. I apologize. Okay, we're getting near the end of our scheduled time. Did you have other things you want to bring? I have one question for you, if not. So the discussion of the building code was reminding me of that issue which came up some months ago about leases that prevented us from putting in air conditioning, which seems related to the heat pumps. So I'm just wondering what happened to that issue and what could or should be happening to it.
So we do have a few items, well, a couple of items in the climate action plan that address it. We're also working with the director of planning and the director of code enforcement to see if there are opportunities that already exist now. We think that there might be one already. So it gets a little bit in the weeds. So, and let me start by saying that I don't know anything about home inspections or like housing inspections. So please pardon my ignorance on this, but my understanding is that when a housing inspector inspects rental housing, they're not necessarily looking at the electrical system other than like checking that outlets are grounded and that there's general safety, but they're not necessarily looking at the capacity of the panel, which was which was one of the issues that tenants were facing and why they could not have air conditioning units, like a window unit or a rolly unit or whatever. So, there's that runs the possibility of electrical surveys, which are a separate thing, not happening. So is there a way for us to incorporate electrical surveys as part of routine housing inspections? So there's that conversation going on, which would take care of that specific issue potentially. I think it does, assuming that we catch up on our housing inspections, which again, there's an assumption there that we're catching up on our housing inspections. But anyway, so we're in conversations that are kind of pulling on a number of threads. There is a lot of research in this area though, and housing advocates and public health advocates that have come together to produce reports on this particular issue are very, very clear that really the only way to do this responsibly is to require air conditioning, or not require to have a maximum temperature ordinance that can only be reached through air conditioning, because once you get over a certain temperature, using a fan becomes dangerous. So a lot of property owners, landlords will install like ceiling fans or something like that as a way to, cool the space, but it actually becomes dangerous once it's over 90 degrees or something like that. Window units often can't keep up. If it's an older unit or it's a very large room or whatever it is. So a maximum temperature ordinance is best practice, but there are a number of challenges with that. One is enforcement, first and foremost, and then two, of course, is the cost associated with trying to retrofit all of these buildings to do that. For a lot of people, that's going to likely trigger the new state code, which means no.
Say what you mean by that.
Which means the new state code starting in 2026 means you cannot use fossil fuels in your building.
I don't understand why this triggers the state code.
So I have to read it more carefully as far as what the threshold is that makes an existing building need to comply.
Oh, okay.
If you are just replacing your heating system, I don't believe that it does. But if you are installing a new component to an existing heating system. Does that change it? I don't know.
Can I just observe that what we just heard was vastly more detailed and informative than what I've heard about this issue in the past? So you must have learned a lot.
Maybe.
Anything else for us? Yes.
Well, David, I just wanted to return to what we were talking about previously of what are we gonna do about the climate action plan and the Ithaca Energy Code supplement? And I personally think that it would be a great idea for us to write a recommendation to council that comes out of this commission in support of the climate action plan. We've been talking about it for a long time. I'm fairly certain that everybody's in agreement, so maybe we can. If there's a possibility we're not meeting in December and this is coming before council in January, I feel like it would make sense for us at our next meeting to have some sort of draft or something for us to start looking over. Just to make sure that we actually have something ready and we've talked about it in an in-person meeting for the January council meeting.
Not related, so go ahead. Let's wrap this.
Yeah.
That was mostly my whole thought is it would be nice to have some sort of draft or something to discuss at the next meeting. I'm willing to start the document and share it with everybody if that's useful.
I personally think that's great. I was assuming based on the discussion, we would do something like that, but I wasn't sure how or when, so. Unless there's a reason not to do it that way, I would thank you and endorse doing it that way.
I think the other option would be to just speak publicly at a public comment.
Right, well, maybe. Well, I was gonna say probably both would be best, so.
I don't know if one speaks louder than the other.
A majority of current council members do read everything that they are sent and such. All council members have to listen to the comments.
All council members enjoy.
I will say about half an hour in, comments do tend to have diminishing returns in terms of the impactfulness on council members. I would recommend both.
Thank you.
Did I say, despite the reference I made to Congress earlier, I assume that all people on council act like normal human beings, and what you're describing is a manifestation of that, so.
Yes, council members are human, as supposedly are congressmen.
Of course.
I didn't say.
We are really up down.
Go ahead.
So, different topic.
I think we're okay.
Just real quick, so. The common action plan, is this gonna be updated, or is this the?
That's not the final version. That doesn't include any of the edits that
Right.
we all have
And
talked
from the
about.
Public meeting. and
Correct.
All that, so.
They will all be
should we
made at once.
Expecting a new updated
Yes.
edition at some point?
Yes, you will be receiving the entire document.
Okay,
I was hoping to get it to you on Friday. That did not happen, obviously. So I'm going to get it to you hopefully before I go out on medical leave.
I just want, from my understanding that this.
That's not the final version, no. It does not include any of the edits that we made here, except I think there were two things that we struck and or
Yeah,
moved.
so then,
And those are the only things that I changed because they were fast.
Just to add on to what Fernanda was asking. Have we released the third of the climate action plan surveys? I saw the links to the first two, but I don't know if the third one had been made publicly available.
It's in my inbox to review before it goes out.
Okay.
I just have to, I think it came in my inbox on Friday, so I just gotta review it tomorrow.
Okay, anybody else have anything that needs to be said before we adjourn? No, okay, I think that we can adjourn. Thank you all once again. Hope everybody was very good. I was like moving in that dictatorial fashion. That's so popular these days. Move to adjourn. I see one and the second over there. Thank you very much. All in favor? We are officially adjourned
Beautiful.
unanimously.
Thanks, everybody. The prize for the prize